All right, so first I'm going to talk about a few artists I think you should know if you're getting into animals. The first is going to be Joe Weatherly. He's got a really great book called The Weatherly Guide to Drawing Animals, which is definitely a must-have book. It's going to be, the emphasis of it is structure rather than anatomy. So he'll go through, and I don't know how much it's going to show, but basically drawing the form of the animal with basic shapes: spheres, cylinders, cubes, ovoids. And I'll have the animals really simplified for you. It's a really great book for, if you're more of a beginner, I would advise you to go with this rather than just diving straight into anatomy. The other artists I would say to look at are Aaron Blaise, who's more of an animator's perspective. So anything like movement related or posing animals in interesting ways that emphasize exaggerated poses or things that are difficult, not just less anatomically based. I mean, they understand anatomy, but they're less focused on the anatomy and more interested in the movement. So Aaron Blaise, creatureartteacher.com. Check out his animal videos. I've really enjoyed them. If you're interested in having a book on that kind of movement and gesture, I would recommend Kin Holtgren, The Art of Animal Drawing. He's an old school animator, so his art's going to be more movement, gestural. There is anatomy, but that's not the primary focus. If you are more interested in anatomy, I would go for Terrell Whitlatch. Terrell Whitlatch is very anatomy-based, and she knows every little detail you can imagine about an animal's anatomy. That's like number of ribs, number of, let me go here so you don't have this infinite loop of videos you have to watch. She's very anatomy-based, knows every little detail. If you could take her class on schoolism, I would recommend taking it as a more advanced student once you have a very good understanding of the structure and gesture. But then to get into anatomy, I would say number one would be, I would get both of these, but Atlas of Animal Anatomy for Artists. That's, let's see if I can get it on screen, okay. By Ellenberger. Very detailed, very academic, very, he goes through and he does he'll show you the versions with skin, without skin, and then without muscle, so you can see just the skeleton. And then as a companion, I would go with Elliot Goldfinger, Animal Anatomy for Artists. And what he does is, why it's such a great companion to Ellenberger, is that he breaks down these complex muscles he isolates each of the individual muscles so you can see where they originate and where they insert. He'll also include, in the beginning of the book, he has the pivots, the way things pivot, so you can see how things move, so you can see the moving parts. So I would get both those books. I would get all these books if you're interested in animal anatomy. These are my go-to books. So that's what I would advise as far as people to look at and books to look at. So without further ado, we're going to get into the skeleton. We're going to be working on a cat today to learn the bony landmarks and some landmarks that aren't so bony. But we've got a little over 20 of these landmarks. I'm just going to go through them one at a time. So we're going to start with the frontal nasal. That's just going to be this area right here. Okay? I'm going to do it on this skeleton drawing first. This is not mine, I just found it on the internet. And then we're going to do it on a real animal. It's very different doing it from a drawing where everything's clear and doing it on a live animal where things might not be so clear. Now we're going to go into the Zygomatic Arch, which is right here. We're going to come and go here. That's the Zygomatic Arch. Then you can do the mandible if it's a skeleton. If you're drawing on top of a skeleton, I would do the mandible. And I would do the masseter if we're doing the live models. Since we're on the skeleton, we're going to do the mandible along the bottom of the bone. Now we're going to move away from the skull and into the spine. So we'll have the spinous process, which is right here, see, behind the scapula. Now, it's going to be different on a cat, because remember, on a cat, the silhouette of the spine is broken by the scapula. So the scapula actually rises above the spine, which gives cats that distinctive hunched look. So we're going to have the spinous process. Imagine I'm just have x-ray vision and I'm seeing where that goes. That's the spinous process. It's going to be most prominent on something like a buffalo skeleton. See how big that spinous process is? That's going to be more important to draw on a buffalo than it is on a cat, because on a cat it's going to be overshadowed by the... I'm actually going to erase the spinous process, and I'm going to go into, here's the top of the spine, okay? Now, next is going to be the humeral head. So here's the humerus. Actually, let's go ahead and indicate the spine of the scapula right here. Next, we're going to go into the humerus. Give me one sec. Okay. We're going to go into the humerus. This is this bone, the humerus, the upper arm bone. From the humerus, we have the humeral head. And we indicate that because that's a lot of times what pops through the... When we have the... This is what the bony landmarks are things that show through even when you pile on muscle and fat and skin. So we'll have the humeral head, oftentimes pops through. We'll have the olecranon, or the elbow. Remember that this isn't where it hinges right here. But this is what shows through. This elbow. It's kind of like on your own elbow. It's not actually bending here. It's bending here, right? But what we can feel on the outside and see is this bony part. Now remember, on the cat, the forearm is going to be separate, just like ours. We have a separate radius and ulna so that we can rotate our hand. But on an herbivore, on a grazing animal, it's often going to be fused. But on a carnivore that needs to turn its paws, think about a cat batting a ball of yarn, or climbing a tree, or grabbing an antelope, like bringing in a football. And then we're going to go down to the... So we've got... Okay, so we're going to finish with the hand. My list is a little bit out of order, but we're going to go down to... So we've got the forearm. And now we've got the wrist. Then we go to the metacarpus, which is the equivalent of the palm of your hand. So think metacarpals are just the palm of your hand, the bones that are in the palm of your hand, right here, okay? Like a little pack of cigarettes. And then the phalanges go like this. Now, you might get confused because you're going to see that the bones don't extend all the way to the bottom. You're going to see that, wait, but you're going to want to bring the bones down all the way here to the ground, but that's not how it goes. What you actually have is a pad of, I'm not sure what it is, but some kind of tissue that's not bone. And so the bones will actually go down, out, and then down again, and then up like this. I think this drawing's this drawing's actually incorrect, but it gets the big muscles right, the big bones right. So it actually goes like this and this. So if I can find a Ellenberger cat paw, we'll go to let's see if we can find a good image. Okay, so seeing these, see if we can get this bigger. Open image in new tab. Okay, perfect. So, see? On this one, how they go down, out, and then see how that little, it goes down like a little, like a ball bouncing. Think of a ball bouncing, right? So when you're doing these toes, think of a bouncing ball. It's like that. So we'll have the claws come up like this. Now, that could be a whole video in itself. Whoops. But we're going to think of that bouncing ball when we think of those toes. But anyway, so we have the phalanges, the knuckles, the metacarpals, the carpals, or the wrist, forearm, humerus. This is the rib cage. We're not going to worry about that today. And this is just the spine. We'll go over here. Now, here's another bony landmark, the sacrum, right here. Now, remember, the pelvis hangs off of the spine. So it goes like, here's the spine. The pelvis hangs off of there, like this. Like a box hanging off of a cardboard tube. So think of a cardboard box. I like to think of a gaming station, like a PlayStation or something. Like a gaming system. That's what the shape always reminds me of. And then you have a little hole here, and then the spine goes through and out like that, and the pelvis hangs off of that tube. Okay? So we're going to have the sacrum right here. Now we're going to have the pelvis, which I've actually got another view of the pelvis here. So let's see, let's delete all this. And we can go into here. So here's the ischium. Oh, sorry, not the ischium. Forget I said that. This is the ilium, the iliac crest. These are the iliac crests, so we're going to look for those. These are the ischium down here. This is an above view, so we're looking down on top of it from the back. And here's the sacrum right here. So we've got the wings of the pelvis, and we've got the rear of the pelvis, which are the ischium, and that's where muscles attach and such. Excuse me. All right, and then we'll have the humeral head. Here we come down the femur. Here's the patella. This isn't a great drawing of where the patella is. It's actually more like, see, so cat, skeleton. A better indication of the, yeah, this is going to be a better drawing. See, we have the bone come here, and then the patella is more in front, like this, kind of sockets in. Yeah, see, it sits more in front and sockets into like this little nook. It's not like it is in this drawing. I wish I'd gotten a better drawing, but it's better. It's a great drawing in a lot of ways, but some things about the anatomy are wonky. So we'll come down and we'll get the lower leg. Now, here's the ankle. But what I like to get is this calcaneus as the bony landmark. That's going to be the heel, and that's going to be where our Achilles tendon, so we have imagine the biceps femoris, the hamstring comes down here. Then the Achilles tendon branches off of that biceps femoris, that hamstring, and comes down here, which creates a hollow shape here, which we're going to see in the drawing I do in a second. Now, we're going to come down from the ankle into the bones of the foot, which are remember, it's not the metacarpals in the foot, it's the metatarsals. So the ankle is also known as the tarsals, right? The tarsus. So then we go from the tarsus to the metatarsals, and then to the phalanges. They're phalanges whether they're on the foot or the hand. So, now that we've got that, delete that, we can turn off our this layer. How do I do that? Let's see. There we go. So, now we've got our actual cat, our real cat, our lion. So, now we're going to use the knowledge we just gained from doing the skeleton and apply it to a real picture of an animal. So, we'll do the frontal nasal. We're going to go down here. That's our frontal nasal. A lot of times it's good to just do the center line. I just think of the frontal nasal as the center line. If you want to carry it down here, a lot of times that's good, just to get an understanding of that, it turning the corner. We'll have the zygomatic arch, which is going to be something like coming under the eye, so something like that. Let me bring up a picture. So it's the zygomatic arch is going to be like this. On some pictures, it's going to be more prominent than others. And it branches off over here. So that's the zygomatic arch, is right here. That's the mandible. The masseter is this muscle that goes right here. I'm not sure which of that is fur and which of that is muscle, but imagine it's this shape here. Those are the chewing muscles. The muscles that help you close your jaw. Now, we're going to go from the to the spinous process, which is going to be here. And then we're going to have this bump here. I'm just going to erase some of that for clarity. So remember, we have the spinous process, but I'm going to erase the spinous process, and instead I'm going to put the head. We can actually see some of the far one too, but we're going to do the top of the scapula. And you can see in here the silhouette of that. I believe, it's kind of hard to figure out sometimes, but you can see the spine there. The spine of the scapula, I should say, which is this ridge here. I believe what we're seeing is the spine of the scapula going like this and like that. I'm trying to see the shape beneath. The more you learn, the more you can see. And then what we're seeing here is the head of the humerus, the humeral head. And then the humerus would go down here, maybe out here. But you just kind of look and you say, okay, what's making sense to me? And it's not going to be perfect, and you're going to make mistakes, but you get better, and if you get it wrong, then you go study the anatomy some more, and then you figure it out. We're going to come down to the wrist. So we've got the top of the scapula, come down the spine of the scapula, get the humeral head, get the elbow, get the wrist, then we're coming down to the metacarpals. Remember, you can call it the wrist or you can call it the carpals, just like us, so like carpal tunnel syndrome. So the carpals, metacarpals, and then the phalanges. And remember, there's the pad here. So the phalanges go, well, we'll have the knuckle here. That's kind of the pivot, is the knuckle right there. We go out, down, up, and out. And we're going to have 4 phalanges there. And then a 5th, so it's tricky. Well, 4 main ones, but sometimes you got one that hangs down in a weird way, depending on the animal. But mainly I think of those 4 that are on the ground primarily. So let's see. And then we're going to get the sacrum right here. The iliac crest. So I'm thinking of where the pelvis would be. So I'm thinking the pelvis is going to be here, here. So these are the ischium right here. I go up and I grab the iliac crest. And a lot of these bumps and such are muscles. I'm thinking a lot of this is just detective work and figuring out. And if you can get a good teacher to critique you on whether you're doing this right or wrong, that's going to be best. You want someone with a lot of experience who can critique you. I'm just doing my best work here that I can do. I'm thinking about where this would be. So I refer back to the skeleton. So I say lion skeleton. Whoops. Double skeleton. There we go. So I'm thinking, okay, where is that humerus likely to be? How high up is it likely to be? It's pretty much right next to the pelvis. So if I can imagine where the pelvis is, it's going to be hanging right off there. So it's probably, this looks more like a hollow, so it's probably not there. So I'm thinking it's probably this raised point up here. So it's just kind of detective work, being like, okay, if it's a raised point, it's probably there. And then if I've got the, so I go back to the skeleton, I say, okay, the femur's going forward at about that angle, so it's probably going to be about right here. So the patella is somewhere around here. And then I look for the head of the tibia. It looks like there's another little bump right here. So I'm thinking maybe around there's the tibia. And the good thing is this doesn't have to be perfect. Just do your best and you're going to get better at seeing this stuff every time. And then you go down to the calcaneus, which is right here. Imagine that. And see, you can see that hollow I was talking about. Let me get rid of that for a second so you can see the hollow. Do you see that hollow right there? Let me zoom in on it. See that hollow? So let's talk about that. So the calcaneus is right here. That's the bone. Now, here is more bone for the ankle. Here is the tibia. Now, is this bone? This is not bone right here. This, get a different color for it. That's going to be the Achilles tendon. Coming down like this, okay? So the Achilles tendon is going up into there, and that creates the hollow. So the Achilles tendon, and then the tibia goes up like that, and in between the triangle of the calcaneus bone, the tibia, and the Achilles tendon creates that little triangle of empty space. And that's really important to draw. It really gives a more of a sense of believability to it. Glenn Vilppu says that's how he identifies whether people know what they're talking about when it comes to animals, is if they draw that and if they talk about it. So, oops, what did I just do? B? Exit. Okay, I see. So I'm in this tool. So, okay, I need to get to here. Sorry, I'm not sure what's going on with this tool right here. There we go. Okay. Learning Sketchbook Pro. What the heck? Okay. All right, there I am. Okay. Perfect. All right, we'll go here. Yes, okay. Back on track. Okay, so we've got our landmarks here. So we did our sacrum, our iliac crest, our ischium. We can see the far one too. The humeral head comes down. Oh, sorry, not the humeral head. The greater trochanter of the femur. Femur comes down here. Get the patella. Get the head of the tibia. The tibia comes down like this to the ankle. Grab our calcaneus right here. Grab our metatarsals. Remember, this is the tarsus. The ankle is the tarsus. We have our metatarsals, like a pack of cigarettes. The foot bones, do they come all the way down here? No, they don't, because there's a pad here. So the feet, the toes actually come out, down, up, and out with the claw. So those are going to be our bony landmarks. Now, you can go ahead and review this and say, okay, how is this stuff working? Do I feel like I got this right or not? Well, I think this is actually more of the muscle. So I think I made a mistake here, so let's go back and we'll review and we'll say, okay, humerus here. I'm going to refer back to the skeleton. I'm going to say, looks like this should be about where the rib cage is. So if this is, the rib cage is coming all the way down here, I don't think this is going to be up here. I think I'm going to move this down more like here. So just, you do it, and then you look at it, and then you correct it, and see like, okay, does this line up with what the skeleton's doing? Right, so you have the upper arm here, and then I say, okay, well, does that feel like it's going into the joint? No, it feels like it's going into the elbow, so then I correct it. You just feel like, okay, does this make sense? Well, if that's the joint, I want this coming down more like this, then I'll have the elbow sticking out of it, and then I'll have the radius, and the ulna, I'm going to have the rib cage going like this, and then where do I imagine the rib cage is ending? Gonna have to do some guesswork because I can't see that, but I'm gonna make an educated guess and just think about there, think about the spine coming, and maybe the spine's not that, so maybe the spine comes down more like this, right? Because it's not, the spine isn't here. That's actually the nuchal ligament, so maybe the spine goes like this, through here, up here. Spine continues into the caudal vertebrae of the tail. And then you could also do it on the backside here if you wanted. Same thing, just figuring out the bony landmarks. You could actually do a landmark here if you wanted. You can just figure out as you go where these landmarks are going to be. You can decide your own landmarks based on your experience. You might junk some of the ones I give you and come up with your own, and that's great. That's what you should do. You should come up with your own method for doing this stuff. And if you want to do the far side, you can. Sometimes I like this as a landmark too, is just getting that, setting that structure up, creating that kind of kite shape. Maybe come in like this. But you can kind of come up with your own. Just look for where you're getting definite corners, and so just things that are very prominent. So anyway, that's going to be the video. Just get you thinking about bony landmarks, how, not always, like, you can study the skeleton, but let me go into here, and I'm going to make this full screen. So just remember, as you're studying anatomy and such, you'll be working from anatomy books, so everything will be very clear and easy to understand, but then when you go to a live figure, it's not always going to be so clear. So if you look for the bony landmarks, it helps you figure out what's going on underneath the form. Especially with animals, when they start to have a lot of fur, you're going to actually need to add in information that isn't there. So maybe an elbow you make more prominent in your drawing so that you give your viewer a better idea of what's going on and you describe the form better. So learning these bony landmarks helps you to exaggerate certain things in animals that help describe it so that your viewers understand what's going on better. And you will understand what's going on better, right? Because if you're looking at a very woolly sheep, you might not know what's going on if you don't study this stuff. But if you study the bony landmarks, you can look for the bony landmarks, and you'll see the bony landmarks that you might not have seen if you hadn't have studied them. So the more you know, the more you see. So study the skeleton, and then do draw-overs of animals, and see what sticks out. Literally, what sticks out? When you're looking at an animal, what parts of the skeleton stick out? What can you see? Think about, as you're, in your daily life, as you're walking around, look at your own hands. Think about, what bony landmarks do I have on my hand, right? Think about, tap parts of your body. What's hard and what's soft? Right? The pads of my hand are soft, and then the knuckles are hard. My elbows are hard. This ties into martial arts because a lot of times we'll strike our opponents with our bony landmarks, with our protruding bones, right? Headbutt, right? What's a headbutt? It's using this hard part of your skull to headbutt somebody. That's think about these protruding bones. Think about cheekbones. Think about, hitting someone with your elbow. You're using that bony landmark to hit somebody. Think about when you knee somebody, when you hit somebody with your knee, you're using that bony landmark to hit them. When you punch somebody, you're using, some people say the second knuckle, some people say the third knuckle. Jack Dempsey says the third knuckle is the one to aim with. But these are bony landmarks. These are bony landmarks. These are bony landmarks. So just feel around your body and think, what could be bony landmarks? A lot of times bony landmarks will help you establish the planes. Here's a bony landmark, here's a bony landmark, and now that creates this plane here. Right? Here's another bony landmark. So just, think about landmarks as you're looking at people, as you're looking at animals. Think about where these landmarks are and how you can use them. So with that, I think we're going to call this done. Let's all take a deep breath. Let's go draw.